Now. Hello everyone, welcome to Collective Campus in Melbourne, the most livable startup city, and we are about to begin a panel discussion. If you're talking, you can talk.
Keep the mic facing towards you.
Around 2008, 2009, I'm not exactly sure. This entrepreneur, his name is Elia Bizana. He registered a domain name, Silicon Beach, Australia.org, because his idea was America has Silicon Valley, let's have Silicon Beach here, because all the Australian cities are near the beach. So he started this, was basically like a mailing list or some sort of bulletin board in those days, and then it became a Google group. That Google group is still alive and very active. I'll show you that if you click on the About Us page. If you just Google the Google group is still very active and it's there. And this guy is now in Silicon Valley, he's a partner in a venture capital firm. And they actually run this Google group. It's very active. You can ask any question, and they're very helpful people. They will answer it. You can just go to our meetup page and click on the About Us to find the link. So join that as well. That is completely separate from us if they run it independently. So then after that, about 2010 in Sydney, this guy went to America, so this fell apart at that time. So other people started Silicon Beach in Sydney, which in 2010. And the whole idea is to get people who want to connect with startups and techies together in some sort of networking events. So they started what they call Silicon Beach Drinks in a pub, get together startup founders or wannabe founders, techies, software coders, and other people like accountants, lawyers, marketing people. They were all welcome as long as they want to connect with startups and techies. So it's a very different meetup to the normal meetups that you have, which are very focused on the user group, programmers, certificate programmers, something like that. From Sydney in 2010, Melbourne opened in 2011 in February 2011. And from there, we have now grown to the largest in Australia, because Sydney and then there's Perth, Adelaide, Brisbane, Gold Coast, the major ones. We started Geelong Silicon Beach last year. We have about 200 members. Ballarat Silicon Beach, I opened it about 3 weeks ago. We have 30 members. One of the organizers is here, Stefan, who's doing the virtual reality demonstration today. And Bendigo Silicon Beach is open later this week. So we are spreading this around the state, and the idea is to take it around the country as well. So we are hoping that the Victorian government will give us some, the 60 million money. Last night I sat up till, the deadline was midnight last night to submit a grant application, and I managed podcast for Silicon Beach Radio. So we do a lot of cool things. So come and join us. And yeah, and also we are going to connect with Silicon Valley. The Silicon Beach who used to live in Melbourne is now living in San Francisco. He was here recently. He's launching a startup called Hacker Exchange. The whole idea is to connect Silicon Valley people to Australian startups. So that will be coming online and to our community, who is very close to our community. So please try this out first. It's Melbourne Silicon Beach. And there'll be an event very soon that we announce through our channels. Just when you subscribe, you get newsletter called Silicon News, and we will have all those details now. Okay, that's all from me. And if the panel is here, we're still waiting for a couple of panelists. Is that Steve?
I think we're waiting for one more.
You want to start? Because it's 2:24.
We'll start.
Yeah, let's start. I'll just introduce Sean. Sean is one of the co-founders of Untitled Chapter, and Steve is the other one. And I'll let the two of you all take over and introduce the rest because I don't know the others. I'll sit here.
Hi everyone, welcome to Collective Canvas. I'm Sean, as Tula mentioned, I'm one of the co-founders with Steve. We started here close to 2 years ago as a co-working space just for tech startups, and that was pretty much all we were. And like many startups in our space and startups in general, we've gone through pivots ourselves and now we're doing mainly towards supporting the startup ecosystem, teaching entrepreneurs and founders how to be better at what they do, and corporate innovation is also a big part of what we do now because they have these vast resources that a lot of the time they're not tapped into, so we try to teach them how to be a bit more agile. But yeah, today, Melbourne Knowledge Week, we've done a few things with them in the past. We've always supported their programs, and we figured, we often as founders, we sort of live in our little startup silo, so it's good to have a chat with the broader community about what we do and perhaps answer some questions that you guys might have about what it is that we actually do on a day-to-day basis and how you guys might go. I'll just introduce some of the people on the panel today. You guys know Atula from Silicon Beach, Steve and Grace, and Mike from Seed Digital. So as a co-working space, I guess we're fairly unique in that we don't see ourselves ever competing with other people that work in the startup ecosystem. We are built upon collaboration. We have anyone can take a membership with us, anyone can attend one of our thousands of free events every year. And it's our purpose to sort of support and grow the community. So I guess we can kick off the panel with maybe a quick introduction from everyone, starting from Mike about what he does.
Cool. My name is Mike Abidam. I'm part of a company called Seed Digital. We're a product development company. What that means is we kind of help startups along the journey of putting an idea into market. So we do that from consulting basis. We're looking at, well, what's the problem you're trying to solve, making sure you get product market fit, to actually designing the service, to actual development. So we're kind of like full service product development agency that helps with that. We've been around for about 2 years, about 3 months, and we're based in Collective Campus here as well.
Grace?
I'm Grace Lai. I'm a doctor and a technologist. So I've got two caps on here. I'm pleased to be part of the leadership team of Peak 15, which is a group of passionate individuals interested in furthering health using technology and bringing together diverse aspects of finance and VC and funding and startup mentalities that will basically create an ecosystem here in Melbourne that will help health technology. My other role is as founder of Periop Partners, which is a software company that's helping surgeons cross the digital divide. We all know that communication is not the biggest asset of most doctors, and it's a critical component of great patient outcomes. So we're really focused on ensuring great patient outcomes. Thanks,
Thanks, Grace. My name is Steve Klebeski, as Sean already alluded to. So I'm a co-founder here at Collective Campus, but I oversee predominantly our corporate innovation side of things. So that's consulting, running hackathons, idea contests, incubation services for corporates, trying to get them to become, I suppose, more agile, experiment, do more with less. What we're seeing in the corporate space is vast amounts of resources, domain expertise, etc., but that money is not being allocated efficiently because we want to take safe bets. And when we take safe bets, we're not really pushing the boundaries or challenging the status quo. So trying to get corporates to spend even 5% of their R&D on taking wild Horizon 3 breakthrough innovation bets is basically a big part of what we do. I also create and maintain a lot of our curriculum around lean startup, design thinking, and also oversee our Lemonade Stand program, which is I suppose, a lean startup program for kids, which we've been running now for about 6 to 7 months, and that's going really well. And I host the Future Squared podcast, which is all about corporate innovation and entrepreneurship, which you can find on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. So find that, give it 5 stars, I'll be happy. Cheers.
Thanks, Steve. that's the start of hustle. Always be selling, right?
And sell from the stage every chance you get.
Atul, you've already told everyone about a bit about what you do, but how about you personally? And why
Personally, how did I get into this gig? Okay, I'm an accountant by training, and I work for the tax office, so I apologize for that. So just make sure that you lodge your tax returns at the end of the financial year. But I had a startup idea about 3 years ago, about meditation, mindfulness, and through that, overcoming anxiety, addictions, and things like that. And I thought this is a great way to bring this to the world through a mobile app, because I didn't know anything about technology basically, so I thought this is easy. So Googling where can I find app developers, because I don't know coding, or I don't know app development or software development or anything. Only coding I know is I know copy and paste HTML code from a website. So Silicon Beach came up on a Google search, so I joined. And this is back in September 2012, I think. And then from there, I was told, look, apps is not the way to go for this. There are enough free apps doing this kind of thing. You won't be earning any money, blah, blah, blah. So everyone, that's what we do. When you come up with the idea to Silicon Beach, we'll first of all knock it down to size. That's good, because I didn't waste my energy or money or years trying to do something that might, it may have worked out. I've learned a lot, but it was destined for failure. So instead of doing that, I sort of started helping the organizer, who was an American, and he had to go back to America, so the whole thing fell on my lap around February 2014. From that time, we have tried different things like partnering with these guys and General Assembly. So there's a lot of educational things. We used to just do only the meetup, only the networking event. Networking is good, but that alone won't get you anywhere. So we changed our whole method of operation to, our motto now is empowering startups. So we empower you you bring your idea, and we'll put you in touch with tools and people to get it going. So that's what I'm doing myself. We have put Silicon Beach into startup mode. And I've got now an idea here, meeting a lot of virtual reality people, that's going to be the way that I'll put my startup into the world, not as a mobile app, but as a virtual reality tool. But that's somewhere in the future, because virtual reality has to become a consumer thing, which is not yet there. So that's me personally. So yeah,
awesome. And just on your startup journey, despite how short it might have been, there's a really popular concept that you guys might have heard about called Lean Startup, or the Lean Startup philosophy, which is very much driving, I guess, best practice right now in startup land. And our resident Lean Startup junkie is sitting right next to you. So Steve, why do you think the Lean Startup is so important for startups and for new people wanting to test their ideas? What's the main thing they should look for?
Yeah, well, I guess I'll take a step back. So 96% of Australian startups basically fail to become sustainable businesses. And this tends to be because they don't build anything people actually want to buy. They go straight from idea into development and marketing mode without really taking the steps that Mike mentioned earlier around validating customer appetite. What's the job we're addressing? What problems are we solving? What gains are we creating? What's the business model look like? How can we validate this? So many people just jump straight into dev mode. They may engage an app development agency who will charge them an arm and a leg, and this idea will go nowhere. And then they're left with no money to play with, and their startup dreams are ruined. So lean startup is all about taking lots of small bets. So if I've got an idea, what does the business model look like? What are the key assumptions underpinning this business model? What's the make or break? So if I'm Airbnb, all I need is a platform to validate, not even that. It could be a one-pager to validate whether people are interested in renting out their space, people are interested in renting space. And there's ways you can do that by setting up a website initially a day to test that with a few $100s, maybe even $1,000. And that differentiates successful entrepreneurs from unsuccessful entrepreneurs. And it's the same with corporates. We see large organizations taking few large bets because they've all come from this culture of avoiding failure at all costs. We have to be right, we need to be certain. But when the world is moving as quickly as it is today, you can't be certain about anything. And if you are 100% certain about what you're doing, chances are what you're doing is not that radical or not that innovative. So the Lean Startup essentially just helps people take lots and lots of small bets, supports experimentation so that they can find product market fit and deliver something that people actually want to buy.
Thanks, Sid. And Mike, I've had some conversations with your co-founder Chris about the struggles of talking to some early stage startups who are, they're gung-ho about their ideas and come to you and say, "See, please build it for me. I don't care how much it costs."
Yeah.
And how do you guys respond to things like that?
It's a tough situation because, being in business, you shouldn't say no to money, but because we have a lot of startup founders that come to us with, as Steve said, you've come up with this idea, your mom thinks it's lovely, and your girlfriend says she likes it, so you think it's a good idea, and now you've come to me and you said you want to build this thing. And half of what we do is trying to get people on a journey to validating that this thing is actually viable. Because actually, from a personal experience, I worked in corporate and I built a lot of systems, and it's very frustrating as a young developer building this huge thing, spending 6 months of your life where no one uses it. It's actually absolutely useless. It might have the latest technology, and we did this XYZ awesome algorithm. No one cares, no one used it. So for me personally, I don't want to build another thing that no one wants to use. So it's trying to get people on that journey to thinking, well, how can I validate this quickly? Instead of spending 20 to 50, some people it's the deposit of a house on the software, actually taking $1,000, $2,000 and testing to see if it's actually viable. So it's tough to kind of get people to see it like that. But
and I guess it's important. You'll hear the word ecosystem a lot thrown around when people talk about startups, and that's because it's so damn hard to start a business, let alone something that is going to scale and potentially change the world. So you need a lot of resources, and that comes in the form of education, community, founders giving back, people doing the right thing, and it's that rising tide mentality that got Silicon Valley to where they are now. So I appreciate what people like Mike and others are doing, where it's not just, all right, cool, give me your money, what's your budget? Okay, I can build it for that, let's go ahead and do that. Because that burns entrepreneurs, unfairly puts them in a position where they can't actually, even if they wanted to test something again, they just can't, and they have to go back to their job and build up their savings, and I'm sure a lot of the founders here have gone through that process.
Yeah, at least I recommend our founders at least do a course. There's Collective Campus, there's a lot of lean startup courses, they're continuously repeating and refining the courses and rerunning them, so you can always jump on one of those. At least do one course. I did a lean startup course back in 2012. This was run by a company called Pollinizer up in Sydney. They came down to Melbourne and ran a 3-day course, and I paid something like $450 for that. It's just fully worth, because that sort of opened my eyes. Wow. And like you said, Steve, they got all of us to do a web page on a platform called Strikingly. Actually, it's a really good platform. It's absolutely free. It's just now improved. Those days you could do just a one-page site, which we were asked to do and put in a form and put our idea out to our followers on Twitter and Facebook friends, and
the wider world through their network as well and get feedback. So that feedback sort of, some of us decided to pivot, some of us like me decided not to go ahead. So that was really good. It's only $450 well worth the money spent. So like that, that was Lean Startup. So there are online courses that you can do free of charge. There's a course called Lean Launchpad run by Steve Blank. It's actually, we have put a link on our meetup page. You can do that. And it'll show you what you have to do, get out of the building and talk to people. That is his famous saying. So you need to do that. So don't keep everything in your head without telling anybody. I get people at Silicon Beach saying, oh, I have this idea. No, I can't tell you. It's secret.
Yeah.
Well, it'll die with him. When he dies, we'll put on the tombstone, this guy died with a brilliant startup idea. So.
Yeah. And that's a big thing. So many entrepreneurs, first-time entrepreneurs ask, oh, I've got this idea, should I be sharing it with anyone? What if they steal it? No one's going to be that passionate about your idea to spend the next 2 or 3 years trying to make this idea a commercial reality, and take a massive pay cut if they're corporate. Like, the chances of success are very, very small. And ideas, unless you share them, chances are the idea is not very good. If you share it with people, you get that feedback. You create a landing page, you collect lots of input from, like Atul said, by getting out of the building. That's the way the ideas evolve into something worthwhile. But if you're not getting feedback, chances are you're protecting what I often like to call an unfertilized egg. So the only way you're going to get a chicken is by letting a rooster fertilize it, right? So, and the rooster, the analogy there is getting out of the building, letting people come back with feedback, saying what they don't like, what they do like, and then iterating from there. So,
yeah, it's really interesting because from both the ecosystem point of view and also as a startup, it's been really interesting watching that. I'm friends with the founder of Speedlancer, and he came back from Silicon Valley saying, I will never build another app if I didn't have a distribution network. So he'll never be able to basically put out what is not really that unique an idea if he wasn't able to execute it all the way through. And I think that the distribution network and the ability to get feedback from your users is absolutely critical to the success of the app. So if you look at Google and you look at things like Airbnb, they're not actually the first in their space, they're just the most successful executors that have come around, and they will be the last owners of that particular space because they went out and they learned from their industry. So it's really interesting in healthcare, especially because $50,000 to a surgeon is not that much actually. So now we have 3 or 4 different types of diabetes apps. We have 400 different types of cholesterol checkers, that kind of thing. Those are the guys that are like, well, why is it that I'm only owning 0.1% of what is a $1 trillion industry, rather than going out and making what already exists better or testing their ideas more effectively against the market.
Yeah, absolutely. And just in that space you play with, how do you find as a startup navigating those sort of high barriers to entry and the highly legislated areas around health and healthcare? What's your experience on that?
Well, I like the concept of Charlie Munger's moats, because I think that the regulatory, the understanding of the regulatory and I guess government kind of rules and legislations around that means that a business like mine gets traction because we're in the industry. So my guys are all healthcare guys. I've spent the last 6 years being a doctor kind of thing. I know the industry, I've got distribution networks, I'm very confident on that side, but what it is actually helping your audience understand where you've essentially seen the market going. So, the value of places like Collective Campus and Tula's group and Peak 15 is that, 3 months ago I stood here and I pitched the idea of where I thought the industry was going, and it was massive, it was too big, right? So if I pitched to Stephen, he was just like, wow. And the value of that is that you get instant feedback from people that are very experienced in the marketplace themselves, so that by the time we just came back from a surgical conference, we're able to refine and play and do experiments with our messaging. So day 1 we went with make a website, day 2 we went with patient education software, and just test which ones are the messages going down. And now we know our ideal customer, our ideal message, and we'll go forward. decent lead. So
And there's so many places where you can get that feedback. Prior to setting up Collective Campus with Sean, I founded a company called Hotdesk, which was essentially like Airbnb for office space. When this was just an idea, I was still working full-time at a bank back then. I thought, how can I go about testing this? And I literally just put an ad up on the Australian Institute of Company Directors website with a brief description of what the concept was, and on the back of that I met with about 15 people who were either successful startup founders or corporate executives who had an interest in commercial real estate. So for the cost of 15 or 30 coffees, including mine, I got a lot of consulting. They asked me a lot of questions that I hadn't even thought about, and all those questions I then go back to the drawing board, put that back into my business model. Yes, I got some validation. People thought it was good, but they gave me a lot of other things to think about, and it didn't really cost me anything. So many avenues out there for you to start collecting feedback when you're still just thinking about something.
Awesome. And just on that note, hacking, that hacker mentality is something that startups not only have because they think it's cool, but it's a necessity. All of us have not enough people on our team, not enough resources to execute marketing campaigns, so we have to think of very creative ways to get those results. So on that, Mike, what's your number one hacking tip to get a startup off the ground?
I just think you need to think a little, it sounds cliche, outside of the box. So one of our John is at the back here, who used to work with us and started a startup. Half the people we talk to and we try and work with, this initial startup is a spreadsheet connecting to, a web form that we've done some marketing on. That's the startup. We've put it out there, people have tested it, we've gotten validation. If someone says they want to buy, we manually run through that process and see if we can deliver that service. That validation alone, before we build anything, is literally hacking. Might not be a technology solution. Well, there's technology involved because Google Spreadsheets is amazing, but you can kind of almost fake the whole service before you build out this whole thing. So that's useful because outlining how the process works and getting that right is a lot harder than just building, because anybody can build you something, but making sure you're building the right thing is a lot more important. So going through, if you don't have the right skill set, it's finding people that have the right skill set and talking to people. It doesn't cost anything to reach out to someone on LinkedIn and ask them for a coffee. If you reach out to 10, maybe one, you just need that one to speak to. So that's just the mentality you have to take. It's not necessarily hacking in a technical sense, it's hacking in a life sense.
Absolutely. Grace, any tips from you for hacking?
Well, I'm the hustler in the group, right? The last time I coded was maybe 2000. So.
No, but hustling is hacking.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. It's kind of social hacking.
Yeah.
So for me, it's really about, what's the problem that I see inside the industry? Because if I see it, then I'm sure that there's so many more smarter people that have actually seen it as well. And the great thing about healthcare is that humans fundamentally, as an organism, kind of are the same. So, and we tend to organize ourselves in very similar ways. So a solution here, I look around the world and I see, what else has somebody else actually created? The best tip I got from the founder of Misfit, actually, the device, was that if you're into products rather than services, go onto Amazon and look at the 3- and 4-star ratings for any particular product that you are particularly passionate about. See where you can actually change and adapt it. And I would probably take the same philosophy and bring it to a services industry, distribution network, something like that. Start there, see what else can be improved.
Yeah, and that's a really good hack because you're pretty much getting free customer feedback based on what other people have left for other products. So.
And also in the services industry, if you see someone doing something similar, see how you can help augment them, something they're not doing that great, and see, how can I help this other person? And by helping them means, you get another network and probably another distribution channel.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I've got one more question, and we'll probably open up the floor to some Q&A if you guys are interested. In line with Melbourne Knowledge Week, we all have a bit of a bias. We're all Victorian founders and we live in Melbourne, we love Melbourne. Atula, do you want to kick us off? Why would you build a startup in Melbourne rather than in Sydney or anywhere else in the world, in fact? What makes us original?
Because you can build a startup. Most of the startups are now technology startups. Otherwise, we don't call it a startup because it's just be a hairdressing salon or a restaurant, which is not really a startup, it's a business, a new business. But a startup actually is digital and it's online, and really you can run it from anywhere in the world where there's an internet connection. You just need a laptop or an iPad, tablet, and you can run your startup. So why not run it in a place that you are happy to live in? And Melbourne is the most livable city in the world, and we've got it 5 times or something. So one day at a place where I was having a biryani and a beer, it's a good combination, it gets your neurons firing. I came up with this hashtag, most livable startup city. So it's very long. People are saying, my goodness, it's nearly 22 characters. So it doesn't leave anything else on a tweet. But who cares? Just that is enough. That gets the message. So I'm slowly spreading that. There's not many people supporting it, not even in our community. They just laugh at it. But
I had characters when I tried to
tweet. But 22 minus 140, how much? I don't know. You're still left with some more. And it's not only the hashtag, not only for Twitter. I've seen long hashtags by various watch companies and all that on their posters. We don't have money to print posters. So I pitched this to the city of Melbourne when I was going to these Melbourne Knowledge Week meetings. And they said, oh yeah, it's a really great hashtag. Yeah, we like it. So will you fund it? Will you do? No, we don't have funds for that. So yeah. It's not getting much traction. It's one of the slowest trending hashtags on Twitter. But really, a startup can be run anywhere. And I have never been to Silicon Valley. I've never been to America. But from what I hear from people who have been there, Silicon Valley is a shit place to live. But you live there because you can get funding, you can meet awesome people, and you can run your, you can get your startup funded. But very soon it's becoming that you don't have to go to Silicon Valley. You can get your startup funded anywhere. Funds are drying up in Silicon Valley. A lot of startups are closing down because investors have finally wisened up that they're just not throwing money at anything. They only throw money at something that has got good legs. So that's why we are live streaming our pictures. So and we are sending the link to the YouTube to angel investors, because most of our community in early seed stage startups. So we don't send it to VCs, we send it to angel investors. So because this is a good place to run a startup from, and our aim is to get startup founders from all over the world coming to Melbourne and settling down here and running their startups. So not only Melbourne, some of them are surfies, so they are settling down in Geelong and surrounding areas, Barwon Heads and things, places like that. So the whole of Victoria we are promoting.
Cool. And Steve, you've been in the game for a while now. Do you see Melbourne as being unique in any aspect, or how do you see us trending as being a better home for startups?
Excuse me, could you speak to the back of the room as well as in front?
Sure. I'll raise my voice a bit. There we go. Can you hear me now?
There are a few chairs in front if you'd like to come.
So I was just asking Steve if he saw Melbourne as uniquely placed in any regard to be a home for startups.
Look, I don't particularly want to use the word unique as such. I think Melbourne as a city is kind of unique. I mean, it's quite cosmopolitan, very multicultural. I've traveled all over the world and I always look forward to coming back here. So to a tourist point, you can build a startup from anywhere. We've got the ecosystem here, you've got the co-working spaces. There's about $800 million of venture capital now available, that's all new VC money in the last 18 months or so it's been announced. There's a lot of government support now for startups at a federal and state level. And there's also quite a few legislative changes coming up, such as equity crowdfunding, which will just completely democratize the game for startups looking to get money. So I think in terms of the Melbourne ecosystem, I wouldn't say it's unique, but I'd say you've got just as much opportunity here as you do anywhere, particularly in the early stages. I mean, when you want to start raising, say, Series C, Series D money, which is like $10, $20 million, perhaps then you might need to look overseas. But you've got a lot of work to do before you can get to that point, and you can do that work here in Melbourne without having to leave, family, friends, etc., the culture you enjoy. And if you look at success stories that come out of Melbourne, just to name a couple, Vado, 99 Designs, they've done really well, and there's a swathe of other startups that are doing just as well from Melbourne. Sydney's probably got a slight edge, but Melbourne is closing that gap. And realistically, I don't think it's about competing. Sydney's better, Melbourne's better. We're both doing very well in this space, given our population is 5 million people. We look at Singapore. Singapore had about $2 billion in VC money invested in 2014. Name one Singaporean startup that's been successful. Whereas in Australia, you've got Atlassian, Lonely Planet, 99 Designs, Envato. You can name 20 that have come out in the last 3 or 4 years that have done really well, gone on to raise lots of money and become sustainable businesses. So you can do that from anywhere. It's an exciting time. 2001, it cost about $5 million to start a company. Today, you can do it for a few $100. And so that's an awesome opportunity for everyone. That's why we're teaching kids this stuff, because even kids can do it. And I think it's an opportunity for everyone to at least give it a shot and see whether or not it's for you.
Grace, what made you choose to launch your startup from Melbourne?
I don't think I had much of a choice, actually. So I'm originally from Sydney. So I'm here because my husband's still training in neurosurgery. But what I will say about healthcare startups here in Melbourne, the opportunity is that you have a lot of really densely, in a densely packed area, you have research, CSIRO, leading institutions, like internationally renowned institutions like the Wade Institute, plus all the actual distribution networks, because I'm really about the community, that will actually take an idea and just run with it all the way to completion. And they're actually open to it as well. So I would say that for a health tech startup is one of the great advantages of being here in Melbourne. Is it unique? I'm not sure. I've travelled overseas. I think that startup mental health is a really big issue. And that if you're going to start a startup, be surrounded by the most supportive people that you can actually be surrounded by. Have a cash flow, have your backup plans, and the best thing is to start in your hometown, basically. So tap into the network, get the community support behind you, and then go overseas. Just try it there. If they don't take up locally, then maybe your idea is too soon for the local market. They'll find another market. But in order to do that, you need to have a base. So that's why.
Thanks, Rez. Mike, like many of us on the panel, you weren't from Australia originally.
No.
Why did you choose to come here?
Well, I came here for university and started working here. So for me, I didn't have the support network or the base or that kind of stuff. But I realized if I went back to my home country, I wouldn't have that either. So, well, I had more of a support network here because I have business contacts and that kind of stuff. So for me, Melbourne was a good enough place as any, rather than going to Silicon Valley or anywhere else when I don't know anybody else. So one thing I do like about, I don't think it's unique in the sense that you can start a business from anywhere. It just depends on you. But what is good about it is it's very good. It's a very comfortable city, and it's easier to fail here because you can just get another job or do something else, or and also the fact that there are very, very smart people in Melbourne and Australia, very untapped. That I think that makes it unique because there's not a lot of competition for tech talent, or not a lot of competition. So that's different. That's, I think, is unique in that place, and also the fact that it's close to Asia is also a very, very good option because if you're doing something that's successful here, you have an easier chance to scale in that in Southeast Asia as well. So from my perspective, I think those are benefits. And yeah, as you mentioned, there are a lot of great institutions as well. So who are open to working with startups.
Thanks, Mike. I think that's it for my questions today. Does anyone have any questions from the crowd for any of the panelists up here about anything?
As you mentioned, like there are certain products like which are already existing in the market, and like you have some innovation or better idea about like how to make it more better, right? So in case of, for example, if I'm thinking of an idea where like it's again kind of a coupon company as compared to big players like Groupon and Coupon, which are already existing in the market. Groupon being the $3.5 billion company, right? So how do you start small with an idea like this, right, where you already have a $1 billion competitor, right? But then again, you are trying to become a with using the same idea but with a bit of innovation. So how do you start this thing at a small level, right?
Yeah, so the first step in any validation of a new idea is customer need. So you've got a funnel, which is customer need, validate that first, validate the problem, validate the solution, and then business model features. So the way you can validate the customer need is simply by creating lots of test landing pages, which clearly demonstrate what the product does. How is it different to Groupon or Scoopon or anything? And then have a button that says find out more, and then calculate how many people click on that button as a ratio, or as a percentage of how many people visit that site. And you can generate traffic to that site quite easily with Facebook ads, Google ads, all that sort of stuff. Sometimes paying about 30 to 40 cents a click. So, 100 clicks isn't going to cost you a lot of money, or 1,000 clicks, or 10,000 clicks even. So that's one way you want to validate that. If you can't even validate customer need, and you run so many different tests with different ad copy, targeting different segments, etc., then you need to go back to the drawing board and really assess whether or not you're onto a winner or not. And on Groupon, Scoopon, companies like that, we had a company come through, we had an idea come through our Lean Startup short course where they kind of put that model and twisted it on its head. So if you're going to go into an existing market, you need to do something different. So what these guys did was, rather than me being sent all these random offers, I've got this, say, a fridge that I want to buy, but I'm going to create a campaign. I'm going to recruit 20 other people that want to buy the same fridge. Once we get that, then the local, good guys store, whatever, can say, oh, we're going to fill that order for 20% cheaper, that sort of thing. So if you're going to do something like that, you need to be different in some way, and you need to get into a defensible position. If your competitors can just copy that, then and they've got way more resources, then chances are you're not going to be sustainable.
Yeah. Just to add to that, it's if you already have, I think it's a good way to learn if you already have someone in the market because they have customers and they might have customers that are not happy. So that's a good way to just talk directly to one of those customers that you say, oh, you use coupons. Well, if you look through the Groupon site, it will not show you, or you look through. If you use a tool to look at past Groupon campaigns, you can find people that have used it. And if there's one close to you, it doesn't cost you anything to walk in there and ask them a few questions. And that is plenty of validation to kind of give you an idea of if you're on the right track. Yeah. So just literally just talking to someone that is in that system, you can find out more.
So I'll go back to your why, which is that if you're going to create something that might be user-friendly, consumer-facing, then I'm really into market validation as well, but I come from a market research background. I look at what people smarter than me have already said about it. For you particularly, I would watch what Peter Thiel has said about Groupon. He's been very critical about their business model, and see whether or not there's a way you can turn it on its head. And then, and I would totally look at what people don't like about Groupon, and particularly the retailers who've been using Groupon now, because they're very critical about whether or not that's an effective business model for them. So it might be a $5 billion company, but what is their future revenue? How long is this a viable company? For that particular venture going forward, find a tech. Are you yourself tech?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's easy for you to do what Steve's suggesting, but the business side, the psychology, consumer psychology, talk to someone like Mike, talk to a marketer, because Groupon is a very strong, heavy, even though it's B2C, it's actually a really B2B company in its messaging.
So one of the ideas with validation is, even in this room, there might be 3 people with the same idea.
Yeah.
And just channeling that so that people aren't doing the same thing. You might as well do something else. Is there anywhere where y'all have like an ideas board, or does that really exist at a town, city, country, state, and then international level? Something like that would be very useful. I'm just wondering if any campus, like collective campus, had something going on like that.
Good idea. I think we can do that in Silicon Valley. Yeah, let's do it.
This is why you should never share your ideas.
It doesn't matter if you all have the same idea, you all have the same business model, you're all doing it exactly the same way, because there's only going to be a very small percentage of people that go through enough iterations, enough learning, and enough effort to actually make it work.
True, but
everyone else will go. They're just not going to.
I completely agree. You're talking about the end result. I'm talking about the beginning of the goalpost. it is a validation check. What you're talking is chances of success. It's in your when your validation, other people who are fertilizing that egg, either teaming up with them or to be able to go a different route. So that's what these two options would be most productive. So just a solution in that space.
Yeah, I think as a form of validation in itself, the more people thinking about that particular idea or industry serves as a form of validation.
Yeah, even some numbers.
Yeah, generally, like, whatever idea you have, chances are there's 10, 20, 30 people around the world thinking of the same thing. But what differentiates successful startups from losers, other than is that finding product market fit, which comes down to your execution. And that's what Max was alluding to around taking, heaps of iterations, build, measure, learn. And the companies that can build, measure, and learn the fastest, speed is absolutely fundamental to success. The ones that can make enough iterations before they run out of money are the ones that are likely to be successful. But you could say, all right, there's 10 other people who all have the same idea, but if they're all just hustlers or business guys, you need complementary skill sets. So you need like a tech guy, a marketing guy, you need a business guy. There's no point in me having 10 other Steves trying to build Collective Campus. I need people with complementary skill sets, right?
And the networks, like Atula was talking about, you got like 90-second pitches where you can go up and say, I'm looking for someone to help me with this idea. We've got a new website that we've got going up reasonably soon that'll have some of that functionality in there as well. And then the co-work spaces, whether it's this co-work space or any of the other co-worker spaces, just go around and try them all out and find people who can share a vision, can share a dream, to help you on that type of way is a good way to do it. So that's really saying all about networks and distribution. That's
So if you have a health tech idea, come to Peak 15. See because the coders that are interested in health will actually be there as well, all hanging out. So far better than you trying to educate someone that's been financed how to build a health app, right?
Yeah.
So that's more time consuming. It's trying to find a hack through this.
Yeah, well,
I get you.
If it was easy, everyone would do it.
Let's ask about any parallels between government grants towards this sort of stuff and also the R&D, 150% tax concession, because if you're putting your own money into a venture, if you can get some assistance to help you that way, then the build, measure, learn thing that's being in conjunction then with someone who's going to help you alleviate some of that risk, and at the end of the game, if it actually pays off, then there's more tax dollars to sort of go around.
Yeah, this thing called R&D tax concessions. We have a sponsor on Silicon Beach. Their name is TCF Services. I don't know whether they'll be around here. You can. There's a process that you need to go through right from the start, so that you document all your expenses, and you can get, I think, something like 40 cents in the dollar back, and that's going to be increased. I don't know what's happening with the budget. But that is there. That's a very good scheme, and most of the tech startups do qualify for that R&D tax concession.
Because of your background, you'll know. But I've been told that most startups need to spend like in the order of $20,000 in order to.
No, that's wrong. That's why these guys are there. They're our sponsors. So click on that sponsor link, TCF Services. I'll give them a plug. They are actually in Sydney, but they have a small office in Melbourne. They have a scheme where they even will assess you and give you some money up front, so that because startups don't have money to spend, because to claim the R&D tax concession you need to first spend the money and you get it back at the end of the financial year. So they have a scheme where you can get it up front. If they think that you really qualify, there's no problem in you getting it, they'll give the money up front. So that's possible.
I'll let you know also about another grant where if you've had an ABN for 3 years or more, you can apply for an education payback. So basically the government will pay something like 80% back of your education costs. I'm sure it will know a bit more.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, but I'm happy to email you the details if you want to come up afterwards.
Especially considering this is startup focused. Anything to help the startup along its journey and underpin and build a very solid foundation. It's going to be worthwhile.
So as long as your company has the ABN for 3 years, you should be fine. And then the people approaching you might be able to use that loophole in order to use it.
So do you have to have it as a company, or could it be a partnership that's had maybe any involved in it?
I'll have to read the company.
Okay.
My question is essentially around the strategic part of innovation. And I was going to ask what your collective capital and the likes of you do to sort of give back to the community in terms of the effects of innovation. And when I say the effects of innovation, I mean, say, for example, efficiency innovation that helps people do things a lot faster or better, but also that actually has a side effect, which is, less people have to do work, which means less people get to work, which means, there's sort of like an unemployment gap there, where you have more, people get laid off because there's new innovation. And my question is, how do you battle or tackle that in the long term? And the second question with that is, alternatively, what would you pick over different kinds of innovation? And by that I mean, there's the efficiency innovation, and there's the sustainability, which is replacing an existing innovation with a new one, and then there's the market enabler, which is so like Uber, where they create a market where people can sort of trade. And if you're an investor, what would you invest in, or do?
Right. So in answer to your first question, if you look at the start of the 20th century, 80% of the Western economy were farmers, right? How many is it today? It's like 2%. So people adjust, new jobs are created. And yes, there is generally a gap. And this is why we're so big in teaching kids about innovation. Because kids these days, like 50% of today's jobs won't exist in 10 to 15 years. So it's about teaching people to be more adaptable and more resilient. If they're kind of thinking, well, I'm going to study to be an accountant, and then half the things that accountants do, if not more, become automated or offshore, and then you're like, well, the government should be protecting the accounting industry. We're seeing a similar thing now with automotive, with GM, Holden shutting down, Ford, Toyota. But the reality is, you need to adapt. It's survival of the fittest, Darwinism, etc. And then to your second point around which buckets do you invest in, generally there's no one answer, because even like with corporates, they invest 70 to 80% of their R&D into that incremental, let's improve what we already have, 10% into what I call adjacent innovation, which is let's take technologies from other industries and apply them to what we're doing, or vice versa, and then a small percentage on that breakthrough big bang innovation. And if you're an investor, it depends on your risk profile and what sort of returns you want. If you just want safe bets, safe returns, you're going to invest in that small incremental stuff. But if you want to place big bets and potentially invest in the next Uber from day one and get your 1,000x return, then you can do that. But you want to take a portfolio approach, because chances of one investment in a disruptive startup paying off very, very small.
What do you want to say?
I was just going to reiterate Steve's point in terms of investments and make sure you have a portfolio. I think in terms of helping people adapt into different industry, I mean, you just need to follow the blogs that, for example, we put out our newsletters, and just trying to educate people and stuff we're doing. Collective Campus do a good job of that as well. It's trying to educate people as to why you want to be. We're doing it right now. In a way, it's like let people know what things you want to be looking at for the future. So in that way, you kind of it's like with a crazy person telling you that the end of the world is coming.
Don't worry about jobs going off, because I think somewhere I read that this going to work in an office is a new thing. It's only in the last 100 years or something like that we started going to work to an office. So it's going back again. People are not going to go to offices, not going to do jobs anymore in the way that we have got used to. Already it's happening in Collective Campus. There are people coming here. They work in all kinds of things, and they don't have office hours because they're working with teams in Philippines or India or other side of the world. So there's a hammock there. Sometimes they sleep in the afternoon and start working in the evening. So all that idea of office work is gone, and you can work on the beach with your iPad. So don't worry about jobs going.
I think in the past, during the industrial era, we had efficiency, where there was really a big drive in the automotive industry, but now we're facing the effects of that innovation. And I feel like possibly in the next couple of years, we're facing certain effects of innovation, like say, for example, our brains might actually be numb to innovation because computers have taken over and they're smarter than us now. We don't have to use our brains more, so people become complacent and they decide to not use their brains.
It's 1941. 1941 is when that's scheduled to happen.
Well, my question is just around those kind of innovations. How can we stop that loop? Because we've seen that happen before.
We don't need to stop that. I think we'll be smarter. I think computers and humans will work together. Now we are talking about computer beating a human chess player, and we're saying, oh, the computer is smarter. But I think what we see is the chess players will, masters will work with computers. They'll play side by side against other computers and humans. So I think we'll raise the bar to a different level. I think that's what is happening now, because we use computers all the time to be better. So it's not replaceable. Yeah.
And you can demo that right outside.
Yeah, there's a demonstration right outside.
There's a virtual world called Second Life, and people advertise, like, American Apparel, you can go in there and you can buy fake, virtual underwear. So, and $1 million is pumped through that second world a day. $1 million, right? It's crazy.
Actual dollars, not fake money.
Not fake money. So they're turning basically fake into real. So think about it in terms of abundance. So we're in a time now where basically it's no longer a zero-sum game, and it's almost like the shifting tectonic plates. Just as a volcano is erupting, and doing more land mass is being created. But the main thing is that you have to be a leading learner. You have to just maintain your edge on education. And I'm serious about this because the people that got left behind on each technology revolution, we're on the 4th technology revolution now, right? Each time the people left behind in that sense were the people that didn't want to educate themselves to embrace the next technology revolution. And the ones that were really scared were actually, there's no founding for it. So I saw an interesting infographic that showed the number of ATMs versus tellers back in the 70s, just when they were being introduced. And everyone's like, oh my God, the tellers are going to be replaced. I don't want to get my money from a machine. Now, there's actually more tellers than there were back then. And it's because the thing that computers can't do, that human connection, that ability to eyeball you, is innately human. And it takes away everything that we've been forcing humans to do, like an automaton, right? Because guess what? Robots can be better automatons than we can. So Ford factory and computer, design, and even AI now, the ability to analyze massive amounts of data. I think, oh my God, what's his name? Vinod Khosla actually heralded the end of what doctors will actually be considered to be as doctors, because he's right. At one point in time, an AI system will be a far faster and more accurate diagnostician than a human doctor. But what they can't replace is the ability for that doctor to hold and touch your hand and give you that sense of rapport and understanding.
Yeah. I took my doctor advice from Dr. Google.
Playing devil's advocate, I just really like the fact that we have discussions about these downsides.
Yeah, I had this discussion with my parents when I was very young, which was like 50 years ago. They said, "Oh, don't use calculators. You'll forget how to add." I still can't add two together without a calculator. Is that bad?
That's the accountants at the tax office.
I think we're out of time.
Yeah, I think we're out of time. Thanks for coming, and thanks to all of our panelists for participating. We've got some other speakers coming in, and we've got some networking where you can demo some VR technologies and talk to some of the other founders as well. I'm sure some of these guys are playing around for a bit too. So
go and try the things outside. Some very interesting things happening. People bumping into each other wearing these funny goggles. So that's innovation. Thanks.
Thank you.
Do you want this back now?
Yeah, I think we'll stop there. So watching everybody, and this is Max, who is holding the periscope all this time. And yeah, we're having a few demonstrations outside, more speeches, so we'll be back with another periscope soon. Thanks for viewing. Bye for now.